The Trona's three AS616s have more in common than their model designation. All were delivered with dynamic brakes and Baldwin's peculiar air throttle MU controls, which will MU only with other Baldwins. But as is so typical of Baldwin, each unit is significantly different from the others, and they took widely different paths to Trona. '52 is the oldest and yet the newest Baldwin on Trona's roster. She was ordered by the Trona in 1953 to supplement the two center cabs and to replace the railroad's last steamer. '52 has the drop equalized trucks and higher hoods that mark late Baldwin road switchers. Baldwin redesigned their road switcher line in 1954 to accommodate GE electrical gear after Westinghouse announced they would exit the heavy electric traction industry. Baldwin left the business a short time later and built only a handful of locomotives with GE electrical gear. The '52 has Westinghouse gear. The redesign incorporated a few improvements. The higher hood permitted moving the dynamic brake grids just above the radiators, leaving room in the short hood for a steam generator or an additional fuel tank. It also allowed more space for a Mars light, which '52 received at the factory. '52 was delivered to the Trona in March 1954. She was put to work switching the plants and occasionally helping the center cabs on the road jobs. After trying out her dynamic brakes on the hill, the railroad retrofitted the center cabs with dynamics. The world has seen a lot of changes in 35 years, yet throughout it all, '52 has been toiling on these same 31 miles of track. Business was booming in the late 1950s, and the railroad decided to acquire another AS616. They were well satisfied with their Baldwins, and had built up a good supply of Baldwin parts. Trouble was, Baldwin had been out of the locomotive business since 1956. So Trona turned to their friends at SP, who agreed to sell them a 9-year-old AS616, number 5249, which became Trona 53 in November 1960. Southern Pacific Lines had the largest fleet of 6-motor Baldwins. 64 AS616s, 29 DRS66 1500s, and 1 DT66 2000. The 5249 made her journey from Eddystone to the SP with a pair of AS616Bs, 5501 and 5502. The 5249 was an orthodox AS616 with the lower hood and Commonwealth trucks. She was built with dynamic brakes with grids in the short hood. Most of SP's Baldwin fleet was weeded out in the late 1960s, and SP sold its last Baldwins in August 1974. 53 has long outlived all her sisters in common carrier service, although DRS 66 1500 number 5208 is preserved at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento. At the time of our visit, 53 was out of service due to a main generator fire.
An inexperienced electrician who worked here for a short while, and he used a lot of solvent to clean the brushes and brush holders and components of the generator, and that solvent would wash the carbon down in the bottom of the main generator, and it built up, and it finally caused a short, and they lost the continuity there in the field poles, and so it was a blessing that the whole thing didn't burn up, but that's all it was, and we're going to get that fixed at probably a fraction of the expense it would take to completely rebuild a main generator. And it didn't fail through any use or just old age. It was human error. It was induced by that solvent being poured in it in copious amounts.
Mm-hmm. Now you're very careful about that.
We don't do that at all anymore.
It takes quite a little time to align a main generator to the crank. You have to go inside, put a strain gauge inside between the throws, and you raise or lower or move the main generator, which weighs in the neighborhood of 15,000 something in weight. You have to tighten it down, take a look at your strain gauge, rotate your crank clear around, and take readings on it, make sure you're aligned. And when you finally get this alignment, after shimming and moving back and forth, you tighten everything down and take a final test on it. Then you dowel this to the bed plate. Just drill it and drive big dowels in there, so you won't move for till the next one has to come out. Maybe 15 years is what this last one lasted.
Sounds like quite a job lining up.
Yeah, you want to take your time. You can't do it like you would in a car for a few hours. Sometimes it takes a week or two to get it done, and then you have to line your compressor to that, because you have flex couplings in there. They're a pressed metal blade, 25 to a pack. You got two of those packs you got to get in there, and you got to get that perfect so that these things don't start bending. When they start breaking, you're out of alignment. They'll come out of there like knife blades. It's a turn.
Wow. Ouch. Yeah.
Do it right the first time.
Yeah, you do it right. You do it right, and they last. They really do.
In 1989, a main generator fire could be fatal to an SD40. But the 53's main generator has already been repaired, and the unit is going back together. One of the last U.S. strongholds of Baldwins was lost on July 21, 1983, when ITT Rayonier shut down their logging operations in Grays Harbor, Washington. This idled their 5 well-maintained AS616s. In October 1985, the Trona seized this opportunity to acquire a third AS616, which could serve as a spare if 52 or 53 went down. 54 was built as Kaiser Steel 1012B. She went to work hauling iron ore out of Eagle Mountain, California, about 200 miles southeast of Trona. Later renumbered 1028, she was replaced by U-30Cs in April 1968 and sold to ITT Rayonier, where she became number 14 and joined their 4 other AS616s. Like 53, the 54 has the lower hood and Commonwealth trucks of earlier AS616s. She was built with Mars lights on both ends, necessitating the raised hood ends. When the Trona bought the 54, they also acquired Rayonier's stockpile of Baldwin parts.
In the rainy state of Washington, ITT had some huge engine houses and train sheds, and they had all these parts stored inside, and our people discovered them by accident. And they said, well, what are you going to do with these? And they said, well, we don't have any plans. Well, what, would you like to have them? Well, yes, we would. Well, what would you give us for them? Well, I think the Dickering started at about 30,000 offered, and they wanted 100,000, and they settled for somewhere just right in the middle there. And I think we got several $100,000 worth of parts, many of them brand new in cardboard cartons and tubes and barrels, and a lot of used parts that were still worth a lot of money. The physical part of it was that our people helped them load 5 semi-truck loads of locomotive parts and ship them down to Trona, and that was an inventory that we were never able to buy before, and we'll never find again at any price, I don't think. So that's what we got, 5 truckloads packed completely full for just a nominal fee, around $50,000.
And a locomotive to go with it.
And a locomotive to go with it, and a complete locomotive engine with oil and fluids in it ready to go, which we unloaded on a separate truck, and we have it sitting out here. And I think that if we were to set it on one of our locomotives on the bed plate, we'd probably have to change some gaskets and seals and rubber rings because of it being stored, but it had been rebuilt by a chrome crankshaft company for ITT and never used, so that's a real ace in the hole. We have the option of changing an entire engine or cannibalizing it if we do need those parts.
It's a nice option to have in this day and age.
It really is if you want to operate Baldwins.
This windfall parts purchase prolonged the life of all 3 AS616s, pushing back the inevitable extinction of the desert dinosaurs.